immigrants whose protected status is facing expiration will now have 3 more years of certainty so that Congress can work on a larger immigration deal, which everybody wants.
I think it's a non-starter for him to ask for a permanent wall and for us to have a temporary fix.
It's a non-starter. They don't accept the fact that whether they like him or dislike him, Trump is the president. And as president, he can veto anything he wants to.
Well, it's day 30, and President Trump's plan to end the government shutdown goes to a vote just on the Senate side tomorrow. Top Democrat leaders continue to reject it as a no-go, dead on arrival. But now the Washington Post is even saying to Democrats, do the deal for dreamers. And more Democrats now support a wall. 2 Democrats, get this, now even saying that President Trump should declare a national emergency. One says, quote, because D.C. is in a political meltdown. We'll tell you who those Democrats are and the path forward to get a deal. To another go or no go to Brexit, it's a vote that could hit your stocks big time. British Prime Minister Theresa May today outlining a plan B for Brexit after her first plan was defeated. Still looks a lot like plan A, but watch this. For the first time, we haven't seen this in months, Theresa May stood up and fought back against the far-left Labour Party. She's trying to get something done. Could this work? This is happening as the UK could crash out of the EU in just 2.5 months. The clock is ticking on that. Tonight, we're going to take you to the battle in the UK.
I regret that the Right Honourable Gentleman, the Leader of the Opposition, has not chosen to take part so far.
Plus, it's not just the UK. Europe is in crisis. We're talking Italy's populist uprising against open borders. Those anti-tax riots in France in its 10th weekend of protests. Angela Merkel's Germany, her party is in trouble, flatlining economic growth, and now they're talking tax cuts in Germany. We'll also take you to socialist Venezuela that put down a major revolt that stopped it by its own National Guard. We've got the latest there. And we're off to the races as more Democrats and a potential independent announcing they're running for 2020. Tonight, the debate on who is the best one to take on President Trump. We've got a jam-packed hour. I'm Elizabeth MacDonald. The Evening Edit starts right now. Well, welcome to the show. You're watching the Fox Business Network. Let's take you to Washington, D.C., to that fight between the president and Democrats. The pressure's on to get a deal. Federal workers could miss a second paycheck this Friday. Let's get right to Edward Lawrence in Washington with the latest. Edward.
Well, Democrats are brushing off this latest offer from President Donald Trump. He offered $5.7 billion for a broader border security, including a wall, also more border agents, technology, and immigration judges in exchange for a 3-year extension for DACA recipients and those receiving temporary protected status. The president quick to say this is an amnesty, just extended protection. It was a non-starter for Democrats.
We are aghast that he wants this giant 30-foot wall to be the symbol of America.
And Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is going to put the Democrats' resolve to the test. He says the Senate will introduce and pass government funding that includes the president's latest offer. It's expected to pass the Senate, according to some Senate Republicans, but the House may be more of an uphill battle because House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has shown no movement in her position that there should only be $1 put towards the wall. Now that some Democrats have started to announce their presidential runs, the language in this is turning personal.
800,000 people are trying to figure out how they're going to pay their rent, how they're going to pay their mortgage. It is completely irresponsible. And those folks don't want a wall, they want a paycheck.
It looks like this government shutdown will continue as both sides talking at each other, not with each other. Liz?
Thank you for the update, Edward. Senator McConnell, now, for an eventual deal, he needs 7 Democrats to beat a filibuster, again, on any eventual deal to stop the shutdown. We're not just there yet, but there is movement. A growing number of Democrats peeling away from the party's position, ready to deal. House Homeland Security Committee Chair Benny Thompson now says he supports a barrier, saying he, quote, would not rule out a wall in certain instances. Senator Joe Manchin and Congressman Don Beyer of Virginia Joe Manchin's West Virginia. Those two are Democrats. Now they say they would support declaring a national emergency. And the House number 3 Democrat, James Clyburn, says yes, Democrats negotiate a deal, get something more permanent for dreamers. So what do Republicans make of this? Let's ask Congressman Ralph Norman. He's on the ground live touring the Arizona border. We're going to get to that story in a second. Congressman, the Democrats are saying it's President Trump who ripped up DACA to begin with. They're not budging. What do you think of what's going on right now?
Well, it's just words that they're saying, Liz. It doesn't make sense. If they were on the border like I am, could see what we're seeing, it's not manufactured. It's a national crisis, a humanitarian crisis. And, we're talking about a securing this border with a fence. It's not concrete walls the whole way. It's a fence, and it's just exactly what we need. They need to talk to people. And we've talked to agents on the ground. We've talked to ranchers who are having examples of what they're facing. So, this is a fight we've got to win. The president is right. Is it perfect? No. But it's a step in the right direction. And if they can't fund the wall, then we're going to sit as long as it takes. And I think it's finally backfiring on what the Democrats are doing.
Yeah, Republicans are saying California, they appropriated something like $75 billion for that high-speed train in California. Why can't you get $5 billion for a wall? Some have floated, sir, the idea of reopening the government for just a few weeks, even maybe a day or so, to get government workers their back pay. But Republican Senator John Kennedy is saying, well, that's going to happen when you look outside your window and see donkeys fly. He's saying the president ain't going to budge. What do you think?
I don't think he is. I think he's right. I mean, what's there to, the president has offered, he's moved from where he was originally. He's put something in writing on paper. We've yet to hear anything on what they'll accept. What we know to this point is they will not accept a barrier between Mexico on the southern border and the United States. And until they agree to that, then we'll sit tight.
Congressman Norton, what are you seeing at the border?
We are seeing the effects of having no border in places. We've seen just a minute ago of fences that are being crossed daily. We're seeing agents who said we literally can't, we can't patrol this area until we have a physical structure. And the great thing we're hearing is while the agents are working without pay, they're saying we're doing the right thing, and they're on duty and they're working.
Huh. Doing the right thing. They're working without pay. Congressman Ralph Norman, thank you so much, sir, for coming in. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, Liz.
Okay, next to this story, the White House now preparing for a second summit with North Korea. Rich Edson is at the State Department with the latest. Rich.
Hey, good evening, Liz. And this is from a report from Beyond Parallel that shows a facility in North Korea. It's known as the Sino-Ri facility, and it's one of, according to this group, about 20 different facilities that are undeclared by North Korea, missile sites, etc. And if you look at this report, they say that North Korea from this facility can hit targets throughout the Korean peninsula and different locations in Japan with no-dong missiles that they have deployed to this site. North Korea also uses Sino-Ri, according to the report, as a development and training facility. The report also says that North Korea's military defends the facility with nearby anti-aircraft, artillery, and surface-to-air weapons. The researchers, as part of this group, are also pushing the administration to make this facility part of their negotiations that are ongoing with the North Korean government to try to get it declared and to try to get them to eliminate it. Though there are real issues with the negotiations with North Korea. Even the Vice President Mike Pence acknowledged last week that North Korea has yet to take concrete steps on dismantling its weapons site. So that very much will be the target of the next summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un. The White House announcing that the timing of that will be late next month, though the White House has not yet said where they're going to have that summit. President Trump and Kim Jong-un had their first summit back in June in Singapore, and they agreed to a very broad set of denuclearization, as they called it, parameters, though they've had a real difficult time, negotiators have, between the two countries, nailing down specifically what that means and getting that process moving forward. Back to you, Liz.
Thank you for your report, Rich Hudson. Great to see you, sir. Let's take a quick check on your money. In Europe, the FTSE is up, the DAX is down, Asian markets up, including the Nikkei, Shanghai Composite, and Hang Seng. While in the U.S., the Dow futures pointing lower alongside with the S&P and the NASDAQ. National gas prices holding steady, the average there, $2.25 a gallon. Let's get to other headline news. Another indicator showing Apple iPhone sales not so great. Foxconn, the top Apple product manufacturer in Taiwan, made the early decision to lay off 50,000 workers. This after Apple's lower forecast for iPhone sales and a disappointing quarterly earnings report. Foxconn is also slowing down the pace of hiring and its new factory in Wisconsin. Here's the question. Will Apple come out with cheaper iPhones? We're staying on that story for you. Now, have you ever tried a free trial for, say, a product or a magazine? You get the free trial and you forget to cancel the subscription, and then you get charged for it? No alert, no reminder, no notification, nothing. Didn't hear about it. But suddenly you are a paid recurring customer. Well, MasterCard is doing something about it. It's trying to put a stop to all that. Reports indicate that starting April 12th, companies that accept MasterCard will need to first get your approval before you get billed after that free trial subscription is over. But watch out, it's only for physical goods, not for streaming services. Europe taking another crack at big American tech giant Google. This time, France fining Google, the parent Alphabet, $57 million for not being clear enough in how it handled user data for personalized ads. Coming up next, it's a new world for Democrats. Looks like the era of the Clinton machine is over. 30 Democrats running, 4 women. So who is the Trump slayer? Who's the Trump slayer out of that gang of 30? We're showing you Kamala Harris. She announced today. That debate's coming up. Plus, lots of buzz about former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz. He wants to run potentially as an independent. But watch this. Democrats in Washington State, that's the home of Starbucks. They say, Howard, don't do it. We're going to debate that next. And we will take you to that fight in Britain over Brexit. It is heating up. British Prime Minister Theresa May laying out her plan B and laying down the law to the liberal hard left Labour Party. The clock is ticking. The deadline for Brexit just 2.5 months away. We're going to be right back. Don't move. Stay right there. Welcome back. You're watching the Fox Business Network. California Democrat Senator Kamala Harris threw her hat into a crowded ring today. She announced her run for the White House. Looks like the Clinton machine is done. The Clintons' lock on the party is now over. It is now open season for Democrats, more than 30 considering a run. They include 4 women, Elizabeth Warren, Kirsten Gillibrand, Tulsi Gabbard, and now Kamala Harris. Sherrod Brown is thinking of running, Julian Castro. It's still only January. Here's the question. Who is the Trump slayer? Let's bring in Fox News contributor Fred Barnes. Great to see you, Fred.
Good to be here.
Who's the Trump slayer?
Well, I don't think there's a Trump player, but I can say...
who's the one who could take on Trump?
Well, I think Kamala Harris is probably the best that we've seen so far, and she is unique, not because she's a woman, which helps, not that she's an African-American, and that helps too, and from California, all that helps. You know what makes her different? She's not a bleeding heart liberal. She's not a conservative, she's not even a moderate. But when you look at her record as state attorney general, and before that San Francisco attorney general, her record there was a pretty tough one. She wasn't hostile to police. You know, there's a piece in the New York Times a few days ago attacking her as being regressive. Gee. Regressive. I mean, she was for things like she championed prosecuting parents of children who were chronically truant, whose parents didn't make them go to school. I think that's a good idea. She wasn't in favor of this state referendum that would have turned a lot of felonies into misdemeanors and so on. She has put some space, some separation between her and these other Democratic candidates, including all the women who were running, who were all competing to be the most left wing.
Yeah, and she doesn't.
She's not.
Yeah, and she doesn't seem like a flip-flopper either. She holds her line, and she's tough on crime. The base of the hard left thinks she's a cop. I mean, I think you make an important point, and maybe she brings the Democrat Party back to life. I mean, here's the issue: the race will heat up, and watch President Trump talk about the economy. Today, he tweeted about manufacturing job numbers, the highest since 1997.
Right.
And Fred, did you see that elbow shot he took at Barack Obama, who said manufacturing is not going to back? What does Trump have, a magic wand? And Trump said, guess I found the magic wand, right?
Yeah, look, the Democratic candidate who wins the nomination is not going to be somebody who's going to be able to compete with Donald Trump on the economy unless we have a recession, which I don't think we will. But Trump will be strong on that issue. But there are other issues where I think someone who's not as I said, a bleeding heart liberal is not somebody who's competing to be the most left-wing candidate around, will have issues. And think of this about her as well, Kamala Harris. She's for some tax cuts. The rest of them,
that's interesting.
They would never even met.
I'm telling you, this is really interesting what you just said. Yes, Kamala Harris put forth a tax cut plan as well. Here's the thing. This is a crowded field. Kamala Harris looks like she's going to take the lead here. Her likability is higher than Hillary Clinton. The Democrats for the last 2 years have been resisting Trump. They have nothing to show in policy accomplishments. They got to probably stop that. They got to get something on the table. What do you make of former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz? He's talking about running as an independent, but the Washington State Democratic Party chair says, don't do it. You're going to split the anti-Trump vote. What do you think of Howard Schultz?
I think he's dreaming. He's running as an independent. Look, Democrats are they really want a real Democrat and somebody who can beat Donald Trump the right way. And that way for them is to be a strong Democrat. I think, someone who's not a Democrat who ran for the nomination in 2016, of course, was Bernie Sanders. And he's not in as strong a place as he was in 2016. And one of the reasons is that he's a socialist and not a member of the Democratic Party. They want to beat Trump and want a Democrat to do it. And so, I mean, the state, as I think you mentioned, the state chair, and a Democratic chair in the state of Washington told Howard Schultz not to do this.
Yeah, you're going to
don't run as an independent.
They're saying don't do it. You're going to split the anti-Trump vote, Howard Schultz. So we'll be watching that. There's an indicator he is going to run. He came out with yet another book. Fred Barnes, you're great, and I think you're spot on. I think Kamala Harris probably is the one to watch right now. Great to see you, Fred.
Indeed.
Okay, coming up. Netflix is taking streaming to the next level. It's got an interactive version of the series Bandersnatch. You choose what happens next. You click on choices that pop up at the bottom of the screen. Netflix says, get this, there's more than 1 trillion permutations of this episode, and expect more interactive shows that could be coming. Now, speaking of Netflix, star actress Gillian Anderson reportedly set to play Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher in the Netflix series The Crown, Season 4. We still need to wait for Season 3 to come out. Also, this story for you. Super Bowl 53 is almost here. The Rams will take on the Patriots in Atlanta, February 3rd. It'll be the Rams' first trip to the Super Bowl since the year 2000. Up next, British Prime Minister Theresa May moving on her Brexit Plan B. The deadline looms to leave the EU. She went hardball on the left in England. We're going to talk about that coming up. And later, Democrats say it's a no-go on President Trump's offer of a 3-year extension for DACA dreamers to not be deported so as to end the government shutdown. We're bringing in a dreamer, Ilaria Yanez. He's going to tell us why he supports President Trump's border wall. That's up next. Stay there. Welcome back. We're coming into the bottom of the hour. You're watching the Fox Business Network. California Governor Gavin Newsom defying the Trump administration. He will now get the state of California to offer jobless benefits from the state to TSA workers and other federal workers who have to work without pay during the shutdown. This after the Trump administration warned that TSA workers and those other federal workers are not eligible for jobless benefits. Hillary Vaughn has the latest. Hillary.
Hi, Liz. Well, the TSA is admitting that workers aren't showing up to work because, like most Americans, they can't afford to work without getting paid. They've already missed one paycheck, and now they're on track to miss a second paycheck this week if the government doesn't reopen. The TSA said yesterday they had about 10% of their employees call out. That's compared to 3.1% the same time last year. The TSA openly recognizing the financial strain that their employees are feeling, saying, quote, many employees are reporting that they are not able to report to work due to financial limitations. The lack of staff is causing some airports to scale down security checkpoints. It's also bumping up some wait times. The TSA says the New Orleans airport had the highest standard max wait time of 45 minutes. And the workers union that represents all these workers says that many of its members live paycheck to paycheck and is reminding the government really that they're on the lower end of the pay scale when it comes to federal employees as a whole. Liz?
Thank you, Hillary Vaughn. Great to see you. Let's get you to the United Kingdom. British Prime Minister Theresa May fighting big time with the hard left Labour Party. Watch.
Undermining faith in our democracy.
Every opposition party politician came out of those meetings with the same response. Contrary to what the Prime Minister has just said, there was no flexibility, there were no negotiations, nothing has changed.
That is the hard left Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn. Now, this is all about Theresa May's Plan B for the UK's divorce from the European Union. The British exit from the EU is still just 2 months away. Still no plan in place for how it will happen. Germany's Angela Merkel getting worried. Now a change of attitude. Angela Merkel is saying, hey, EU, lighten up, be more flexible with Great Britain. Joining me now is the host of The Next Revolution, Steve Hilton. Steve, I got to tell you, this was the thing to watch today. Theresa May really took it to Jeremy Corbyn and fought back. Hadn't seen that in a while, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that she's, coming out with some spirit, but the truth is, she doesn't really have a plan B. She has a process B. She's trying to sell the same plan, but in a slightly different way. And her real strategy is to basically keep going with her plan without really changing it in order to get so close to the deadline that people just say, well, look, there's nothing else on the table, so we've got to go with this. But the problem is that her plan isn't really Brexit. I've been saying this all along. It's really just a transition period with all the big decisions about how the relationship between Britain and the EU will be handled, all postponed years into the future. And right now, the only actual plan, not a plan, the only scenario that really truly delivers on the Brexit vote of Britain leaving the EU is actually what is called the no-deal exit, where Britain just leaves, as the law currently says, on March the 29th, without a deal in place.
Understood. And, you're right. It's the same. It's not a deal. It really is. It basically, everything you said is absolutely correct. The change today was that Theresa May looks like she now will not deal with the Labour Party and the hard left and try to deal with the opposition. She's going to work with her Tory backbenchers, including Jacob Rees-Mogg and the Conservatives, who could say, you know what, leave the EU, get it done. We know that the markets got hit hard the day of the Brexit vote, but it would end up having England being one of 50 other countries that trade with the EU. That's not really that bad of a thing.
That's exactly right. This is the thing I've been saying all along. And you know what's really missing from this whole debate in the UK is the positive case for being outside the EU and a positive policy agenda to make the most of that. A pro-enterprise agenda to cut taxes, cut regulation, make Britain the kind of enterprise capital of Europe, not bogged down in all those bureaucratic rules that the EU has to suffer. And that case just isn't being made at the moment. They're all so kind of looking at these kind of the worst case scenarios. Yeah, no one's out there saying this is a great thing.
Steve, you know who's making the case that you're just talking about slow growth? It's the Yellow Vest protesters. They gathered in Paris over the weekend for their 10th straight weekend of protests and fighting. I mean, Steve, this is still going on. You got to imagine people in England are looking across the channel and saying, we ain't you, France. We're happy. We're not. Does England really want this flatlining, no growth, high tax, high regulation environment for themselves? I can't fathom that.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? But the truth is that actually the reason that that might happen is because of exactly what the Yellow Vest protest is about, which is the people who've been left out, the people who've been left behind. Like, if you live in Paris, you're doing great. Things are fine there. But for most of the working French people, they've been losing out. Same in the UK. The people making the decisions in London, their life is fine. And so that's why they're okay with the status quo. But those Yellow Vest protesters, they want change, just like the Brexit voters wanted change. And that's why you've got to see it the same way.
Interesting. Steve Hilton, you're always great. And you can catch Steve Hilton's show, The Next Revolution, Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on the Fox News channel. Great to see you, Steve. Come back soon. Coming up next, we will hear from a dreamer, a DACA recipient. He was brought here to the U.S. from Mexico as a baby. He supports the president's border wall. We're going to talk to him. And then I will talk to the former border chief in the Obama administration. He says this isn't about politics. It's about security. He's urging President Trump stay the course about the border and on the border. He will make his case. That's coming up. Stay there. To the president's shutdown deal, Democrats they're saying it's not enough. They're saying the president only offered 3 years of protection from deportation for DACA dreamers. DACA dreamers could be deported after 3 years. He did offer a lot of border security measures that Democrats even supported, all in exchange for $5.7 billion. That's what the president is still asking for border security. Democrats argue that Pelosi would be giving Trump a down payment on a permanent barrier in exchange for temporary relief for dreamers. Well, let's bring in a dreamer. Let's bring in Ilario Yanez. He's a DACA recipient. He supports the president's border wall. Great to see you, Ilario.
Thank you for having me.
What did you think of the deal?
Well, first of all, I want to first congratulate the president for a tremendous 2 years of what he's been able to do for the American people. I mean, you're talking about less regulation, less taxes, the judges, the Supreme Court, the military. I can go on and go on forever. But I think we're still missing immigration, and I think right now is the perfect opportunity. And you saw the president take the first step forward.
Sorry, Ilario, did you like his deal?
Yep. Absolutely. I think it's a first step in the right direction, and I think he's inviting Speaker Pelosi to come to the table and negotiate.
Even if the DACA dreamers get deported after 3 years, you're okay with that?
Well, that's what it is. I think we need to come together, both parties, and we need to figure out a win-win situation. I think there's a lot of Democrats coming out that it's just only a temporary solution, and I think Democrats want a permanent solution. And I think that's where we need to come together and agree on those two.
Yeah, this is an opening bid. All right, let's go through. Let's show the soundbite of what has been laid out by the president. Watch.
The plan includes $5.7 billion for a strategic deployment of physical barriers or a wall. This is not a 2,000-mile concrete structure from sea to sea. These are steel barriers in high-priority locations.
What's your reaction?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, border security is very, very important. And I think he comes out, and I think he has every right to put American safety first. And I think, he's very adamant about that. And so that's why if the president wants, the border wall, then I think the Democrats are really going to want a permanent solution for the dreamer community as well. Quickly, it's a win-win situation. I think both parties win.
Ilario, if the Democrats come up empty-handed with nothing for dreamers, that's pretty bad, right?
I think at the end of the day, it shows, their true colors. And I think right now there's still an opportunity for them to stand up and speak up for the dreamer community.
Ilario Yanez, a dreamer himself. Great to have you on, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Come back soon.
Thank you.
Now, Border Patrol agents, they're the men and women on the front lines. Many of them are working without pay. Joining me now is Mark Morgan. He's a former Border Patrol chief in the Obama administration. Great to see you, sir.
Thank you for having me tonight.
So make your case for why you support the president's border wall.
Well, let's look at the facts. So if we run through some of the facts that we all know, we've heard, a little under 400,000 were illegal immigrants were apprehended last year. Probably you could say 100,000 to 200,000 got through that we didn't catch. 60,000 in 1 month. We recently see additional caravans come in, and the largest single group of asylum seekers tunneled under the wall just this week. That's real. That's not manufactured. And so what the president has been doing, it's a little complicated though, Liz, with the wall and along with technology and personnel. That fits into the strategy of in between the points of entry, right? More personnel, physical infrastructure, and technology. But that's only part of the problem. We also need to look at our asylum laws and horrible judicial decisions like the Flores case to eliminate the pull factor of these individuals.
Meaning giving them an incentive to come here to game the system, right? Is that what you're saying?
Liz, you're absolutely right. And so what the concern is that we can address all this stuff that the president's doing, which is absolutely right, in between the points of entry, to take that avenue away from the cartels, to eliminate bad people and bad things. But if we don't erase and get rid of the incentive, this is not going to stop. It's just going to get worse, and the facts show that it is.
What do you say to people in the media or politicians who say the wall is ineffective? What's your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction is that's why I'm here, because that's absolutely 100% a lie. They're misleading the American people. If we go back to 2006, the Secure Fence Act, a bipartisan bill that was passed, they said the same things on a bipartisan level, Liz, back then that the president is saying now, word for word. It worked then and it works now. In 2016, I gave congressional testimony where I said the wall worked. No one there called it immoral, and no one challenged me that it was ineffective then. What's changed?
Mark Morgan, President Obama's border chief. It's great to see you, sir, and thank you so much for your service to our country, Mark.
Thank you, Liz.
Appreciate you. Come back soon. Coming up next, we're going to take you to the socialist nightmare in Venezuela, spiraling deeper into crisis. Government forces backed by Maduro stopped an uprising by the National Guard forces who wanted the socialist dictator Maduro out. We're going to take you there. That's coming up. And later in the show, to the media backlash after the special counsel, Robert Mueller's office, poured cold water on that BuzzFeed story that lit up the airwaves on Friday. It turns out it was wrong, according to the special counsel. The story alleged that President Trump told his former personal attorney to lie for Congress. Current attorney for President Trump, Rudy Giuliani, telling Fox News, whoever's responsible for that story just flat out not telling the truth. We're all over it. Coming up. Stay there.
While CNBC is on tape,